Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Damodar Prabhu,
Hare Krishna.
You took to Krishna consciousness in 1976 in New York City when you were 17 years old.
Yes, Maharaj.
And you were regularly visiting the ISKCON temple in New York City. And on August the 1st, 1977, you moved into the temple, which means you were in the temple for 3.5 months before His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada passed away from this world. Already in January of 1977, you had been told that you would be part of an initiation by Srila Prabhupada.
They told us towards the end of October of 77.
Oh, I see. Toward the end of October 1977, you were told that you would be initiated, along with others, by Srila Prabhupada in January 1978.
Yes.
Of course, that didn't happen. And subsequently, you were initiated by His Holiness Satsvarup Das Goswami.
That was in June.
In June of 1978.
Bhakti Yatra. Yeah.
And so you've been in Krishna consciousness, following Srila Prabhupada's instructions for almost 50 years. You've been in important management positions. You've been close with many leading disciples of Srila Prabhupada. What would you think if someone 20 years old comes up and tells you that they are a direct disciple of Srila Prabhupada?
Well, I think, first of all, that would be physically impossible because you didn't actually get initiated. So what you're describing is a Ritvik system, which that system itself came out of something negative. Just like in a room that's moist and damp and dark, the only thing that's really going to grow is mushrooms and fungus and things like that. So because at that time with the 11 original, I think it was 11 original gurus, they were given the right to initiate. But then there were some discrepancies because in some temples, the Vyasa signs for the gurus were bigger than Prabhupada's. And then Prabhupada's other disciples it was mandatory that they also came and participated in the Vyasa, in the Guru Pujas. So from these things, resentment started building in a lot of places, and this was kind of like the birth of Ritvik, as far as I understood.
Well, it was actually, we'd never heard of Ritvik initiations. Yeah. Some idea was made by Rupa Vilas Prabhu and Karnamrit, I believe. It was a few years later, into the 1980s.
Really?
Sometime in the 1980s. Rupa Vilas Prabhu, in the meantime, has recanted on that. And then a whole book purporting to uphold this Ritvik theory, which again, we'd never heard of, was written by Krishnakant Desai, and that's become like the Bible of Ritvikism. But we never heard or imagined of it until it was perceived that there was a need for that when things started going wrong with the guru system.
Yes, what happened, pretty much you were there, Maharaj, so you know that when some gurus started falling and things, all these discrepancies and philosophical differences, and there was even arguments and dissension amongst the leaders. Everyone had different ideas of what Prabhupada wanted. And this created this doubt and, to be quite honest, a lack of faith. So this vacuum that was there had to be filled. So all of a sudden it started to be filled by that. And also there was I think the Srila Swami was in the 80s, and then the Rai Maharaj was a little bit later, I think.
Yeah. Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj was living in Navadvip, godbrother of Srila Prabhupada, senior in many ways.
Yes.
In age, in number of years in the movement, and Srila Prabhupada had said that I consider him my shiksha guru. And the GBC members started to go to him for guidance, and then many devotees
I remember that.
started taking initiation from him, which was, there was a whole turbulent history, which was seen as a threat by ISKCON leaders at the time. But at that time, as far as I remember, the Ritvik idea hadn't been concocted.
Yeah. It was a while ago, so the timeline itself, I don't really remember. But I remember having my Guru Maharaj, Satsrup Maharaj, I got initiated with, and I even spoke with him one time, and I said, when I first got initiated, and we would each individually get to see him. I went in the room, and he said, Damodar. So I sat down, and he goes, what's troubling you? I said, I don't really know who you are yet. So when I sat with him, and I told him that we used to chant a prayer, if it's your desire, my dear Lord Krishna, please cure Srila Prabhupada. I had the 11 at night till 3 in the morning shift. So when I used to go every weekend.
You'd be up in the night?
Yeah, I would get there like 8 or 9. They'd give me some prasadam. I'd take a shower. I'd put on yogi pants and a kurta. And I would just, with a pair of kartals, I would chant. And then after every like 20 minutes, I would make that prayer. And sometimes until Mangalarti and the devotees started coming in, and then everything was going. It was like 24-hour kirtan. Always,
I see. There's 24-hour kirtan for
that's what we
Srila
were
Prabhupada, yeah.
But that was the prayer that we used to make.
I don't remember that, because at the time time of Srila Prabhupada was just before his passing away. I was out on traveling Sankirtan in Assam, northeast India, and we were out of contact with the world. So, but we arrived in Mayapur the evening, that would be November the 13th, 1977, and then the next morning, after Guru Puja, it was announced, because the news didn't reach, and it had to go by phone from Vrindavan to Mayapur. So November the 15th, after Guru Puja, in Mayapur, it was announced.
I think everyone remembers where they were and exactly what they were doing on that day.
Yeah.
It was. But I told my Guru Maharaj, Satsur Maharaj, I said, I don't really know who you are yet. And then he leaned over and he said, on behalf of Srila Prabhupada, I give you the name Damodara Dasa. And we'd already had the initiation. And my understanding was that that initiation and having Guru, it's a matter of the heart. It's not a matter of designation. So the Ritviks, I never appreciated it, because they were forcing, like, this is your guru, these are bogus. I'm thinking, that's like telling me my father or my mother is not bona fide or not nice, or they're evil people. And there was, I'd already, by the time I remember it was happening, I was already like, enough of this nonsense. I said, you can't tell me that I can't respect and love my Guru Maharaj. And at that time, there was a big thing between shiksha and diksha. There wasn't much of an understanding of that. That the diksha is one that gives the initiation. They were saying diksha and shiksha were the same, but they could actually be separate also. Because especially now, some gurus have lots of disciples, they can't see them. But Srila Prabhupada, he had so many disciples, and in so many places there was that designation of someone who organically became sheltered by the senior devotees there. So everything was working nicely. So when they became mature enough or strong enough to actually take disciples after Prabhupada left, then with some gurus it worked very nicely, and with others it became chaos and havoc when they actually didn't make it, as I would put it. And then when that happened, I just remember there was a strong surge of devotees leaving or taking up this philosophy of Ritvik, or also going to other gurus in Gaudiya Math and things like that. So for myself, I'm fully satisfied in my position. I mean, I love listening to Srila Prabhupada's morning walks, especially when he's yelling at Dr. Patel. But that was more of a banter. They were like doing like this. I remember Brahmananda told me once, he said, I wanted to sit on him and just crush him. He was making me so angry. But the Ritvik system, as far as I can see, a lot of it comes out of just filling a vacuum of dissatisfaction and a lack of faith in the process of and the position of the gurus. So myself, I love my Guru Maharaj. He had a mishap one time. He lives 2.5 hours away, and I go see him every couple of months. And I've never met such a sadhu. I mean, he's the epitome of he's a sadhu. It's like going to, like for some of them, some people get inspired by other people, but for myself, I'm looking at him and I'm just like, this man is so humble. He's so shastrically correct, but his mind is completely focused on Srila Prabhupada and Radha and Krishna. Not in an esoteric way, like some of these gurus. I could bring you to a higher level. All this.
Well, it may be esoteric also.
Yeah.
But he's not advertising.
Yes, but it's just amazing how for me the relationship of guru. He's my guru. He's my father. I'm his disciple. I'm his son, and he's already many times said, and we're friends. And I was like, I was afraid to write my letters and say, and your son, your disciple, and your friend. I was very like that, but I would always write them, and he said, you're not writing that. I said, he goes, you always had trouble getting too intimate. I was like, I'm just trying to be respectful. But we have many, many times when we speak and talk now, and we get frivolous a little bit sometimes, but it's always on a Krishna conscious platform. And whenever I leave his house, I am completely inspired in my Krishna consciousness. So as far as I'm concerned, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's what I see as Ritvik. They're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I've seen so many disciples, I've seen so many gurus, and I see their relationships and they're inspired. And they're growing in their Krishna consciousness. So you want to speak about being Ritvik, fine, then go be Ritvik. But don't become aggressive and like sometimes, I don't think that so much now, I don't see as much of it. Maybe in India it's more.
It is in India, yeah.
Yeah, in India it's more. In America it's not as pronounced.
You say it's fine to be Ritvik, but is that in line with Shastra or tradition?
No, it's not fine to be. But when I was temple president, there were several devotees. Like I said, my friend, he went through 2 gurus who had fallen away. And when he came to me the 3rd time, I was temple president in Boston, and he became Nimai Chaitanya, really sweet, very educated. He does Ayurveda and massage and what do you call acupuncture. He does all these things, holistic medicine. And he goes, I got initiated by Narayan Maharaj. And I didn't want to judge him on it because he had already been heartbroken twice. So for him, the system wasn't working. So he took from Narayan Maharaj, and I watched him blossom in his own way. That's, again, what I'm saying. It's a matter of the heart. You develop trust and faith in someone.
Faith right. Is the basis of Krishna consciousness.
Yes.
Shraddha Ranjan Hoy Bhakti Adhikari. Ado Shraddha. Faith is the basis. And we are enjoined to have faith in Guru and Krishna. And many they couldn't find their faith in ISKCON gurus as they are now. But that would seem to me to be almost an indictment of Srila Prabhupada that he couldn't produce anyone who you could put faith in.
Yes, Marsh. I've had this discussion many times.
Yeah, haven't we all? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, I judge every person not by who they got initiated by or what philosophy they're following, but by their character and their dedication to Srila Prabhupada, having at least appreciation. I know Narayan Maharaj disciples who used to come, but they loved Prabhupada because he was the one who came. He was Jagat Guru. He came to America. He started this movement, and there are some disciples of Prabhupada who are qualified. Some are not. Some are qualified. But the fact of the matter is, if you can inspire someone to take up Krishna consciousness, then on some level you're guru. Whether you're the production guru, the initiating, the first person who brings it, whether you're a shiksha guru, whether you're the diksha guru, whatever level it's on. The thing is that inspiration is there, and the proof is in the tasting. So if one can become Krishna conscious, and you see everyone around him becoming Krishna conscious and things are growing, then that person has some sort of spiritual potency. And as far as I understand, that means you have blessings of Guru and Krishna.
Well, couldn't that be said about Ritvikism also?
On some level, yes, it could be. It could be done. But I just remember a lot of these Ritviks that were very much aggressive and angry and pushing forward on some levels. So on that sense, on the external level, it looks like there's that inspiration. But internally, it's really not there.
Yeah, it's more negative than positive, isn't it?
Yes, Mark.
It's living in India, we're always conscious of Pakistan. Pakistan's whole reason for existence, the way they maintain their spirit of being Pakistani is enmity to India. They have no positive basis for their existence. And so the same way with Ritvikism, they have nothing positive to put forward for their existence, but they have to always point out the faults, real or imagined, of the ISKCON gurus and guru system. Otherwise, there's no reason to have Ritvikism.
Yeah, there isn't. But because of the history,
it's on a very negative basis. So,
yeah.
And that leads to so many offenses, and
on both sides, Maharaj. That's the problem. Then the Ritviks will do, and they've committed all these offenses, but sometimes I've seen it where Prabhupada's disciples, they take the bait, and they get into these debates and heated, and it becomes such a crescendo of anger. I actually witnessed it several times, and it just kind of like look and you go, what's the point of this? One time, these two Prabhupada disciples were really arguing, and I went up to him and said, what's the point of this? He said, what do you mean? I said, what good is coming out of this? You're not remembering Krishna or Prabhupada, really. And they both went, and they
well, Siddhanta Balya Chittena Karaha Lash Eha Hoite Krishna Lage Surira Manosh. We're enjoined to understand what's the factual position, to engage our mind in that and not be lazy. By this we can properly understand Krishna. Or our mind can be firmly attached to Krishna. The thing is that there are proper siddhantas, and there is upper siddhanta. There's what is accepted by Guru, Sadhu and Shastra and which isn't. And there are upper sampradayas with all kinds of different ideas. So it is important to differentiate. And it might seem that someone has a lot of devotion, but if they're not properly philosophically situated, then it's going to deteriorate and it's not going to go to Krishna. I got this experience in Bangladesh. I first went there when I was 22 years old, and I saw so many upper Sampradayic devotees. Some memories stand out in my mind. Mridanga cartels, jumping, chanting, ecstatically chanting in kirtan some mantra to some completely bogus so-called avatar. So it had all the symptoms of devotion externally, but it's absolutely bogus. You've never even heard of this bogus avatar. There are so many in Bangladesh. So that was very instructive to me. That it's not just the feeling in the heart, or you may think, oh, I'm really doing everything for Prabhupada, but you have to see if we're actually in line with what he teaches, and what he teaches is in line with what all the previous acharyas have taught, and what Krishna taught. Evang parampara praptam. This knowledge is received through a parampara. It's also true that in the list of sampradaya gurus given to us by Srila Bhaktistan Saraswati, that there are time gaps. For instance, if we see from Narottam Das to Narottam Das to Vishwanath Chakravarti, there's a time gap. Narottam Das passed away considerably before Vishwanath Chakravarti was present in the world. And then after Vishwanath is Baladev Vidyabhushan, who wasn't initiated by Vishwanath. He's actually was in Krishna consciousness in the Madhva Sampradaya. So, in the meantime, between Narottam and Vishwanath, there were initiating gurus. And when Vishwanath Thakur sings Vande Guru Shri Charana Ravindam, he has his personal Diksha guru. But in drawing up because there have been thousands of gurus, initiating gurus, but in drawing up the list of the Sampradaya, the prominent names are given. So it may be that there are many gurus who are not on the level of course, in Krishna's vision, whoever's fully dedicated to him, and in the eyes of the disciple, whoever's giving the gifts of the Sampradaya is as good as God. That's what Krishna himself says. But some are very prominent by their teachings, by their influence, and some less so. So it may not be that everyone's a very powerful acharya on the level of our own Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktistan Saraswati, Gorkishore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and so on up. But if they're teaching the right thing and they're following the right system, then that's what a guru does. By practice and by precept, he should follow the previous acharyas.
Also, didn't Srila Prabhupada say that, disciples should take disciples?
Very clearly.
Should become guru. I've read I've seen it. So
many times.
So, so I always scratched my head on that, but I always stayed clear of it because, I've been a pujari my whole life. A few years ago, I was temple president. That was like 20 years ago, but I've always did deity worship. And to see all this fighting and bickering and misconceptions, and I just think it's a waste of time.
Well, I'm not sure if it's a waste of time, because if you don't counteract misconceptions, then they'll...
No, I'm speaking from their side, the arguments that they would use, and I'm all I would see is it would even come to violence sometimes, and I'd be like, where's the Krishna consciousness here? Yeah, and so... But shastrically, I don't see anything that really explains it as the right philosophy.
Hmm.
And as you said, what would I think a 20-year-old? I would think I think it's pretty ridiculous, actually.
Silly, isn't it? Yeah.
So I'm not usually so outspoken about it, but in this case,
As I've asked you.
yeah. 'Cause
Otherwise, you never talk about it.
no,
You don't have any reason to talk about it.
no, I'd rather just do the service that I've been given
Hmm.
and try to help inspire the devotees who are here. So,
Okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Do you want to talk something now about New York, 1970s?
Well, you got a few months.
All right, then.
We could talk sometime about. It was. I say it's like, I know it's 10,000 years of the Golden Age, but I really feel like the 55th Street Temple
Was Golden Age.
that was the Golden Age. I remember there being kirtan competitions.
Hmm.
Devotees from all over the country would come.
Which Prabhupada didn't approve of.
But it was really ecstatic. We all just, but it really wasn't a competition. It was an excuse to have all these kirtaniyas, Jai Sachinandana, Dinanath, and we had at least 10 Maharatis, kirtan leaders in New York.
Right in New York City itself.
Yeah, and so it was just, it was like having a special festival of kirtan. And during that time, we were doing kirtan for 6-8 hours every day in the temple. It was just like, and then Saturday, if you could imagine having all these really big devotees, like total, with all these devotees coming in, it was like over 200 devotees. 2 lines going down Fifth Avenue to Times Square. And then there was one spot where we could all be there, and there'd be 200 devotees. And we would make popcorn and put a mantra card on it. And people were like munching popcorn and reading the card, and there was 200 devotees chanting. And then when it was time to respond, it was like being in Mayapur. All these karmis were like chanting. And it was like, it was so boisterous and loud. And it was, and every time we did, well, that year, I remember when all those people came, we had at least 5 or 6 people come back to the temple. A couple of them were my godbrothers now. But it was just such an amazing thing to see the holy name come to New York City downtown. It reminded me of Lord Chaitanya when he was going, when he would do kirtan, and he went to the, what was it, the Kazi, I think?
Yeah, Chan Kazi.
And it was just, I could see the same sort of thing, to kind of cut through the material energy. And we were there, and there was nothing else happening in Times Square except that Harinam. And there was so many devotees, like if you can imagine a circle of devotees, and then there were hundreds and hundreds of people around us, like 200, 300, 400 people. And then when they would chant, and it would like, I felt like that sound vibration pierced the sky, like Lord Brahmana.
That was vibrating off all the buildings.
Oh my God, it was so amazing, Maharaj. So, and the sense of purpose at that time, sense of purpose in the late 70s, early 80s, even after Prabhupada left.
It continued for some time.
It did, until the mid 80s. And then things started to change a little bit. But I like it here at Krishna Life, where we are in Atlanta, because it brings me back to the old days. The same etiquette, the same enthusiasm, the same, not so much the same prashadam, but no one could compete with Apurva and Vishnu Gada and Gopal and all these devotees who were like, extremely expert at everything. And those days we called them the Prabhupada feast, the minimum 10-course feast. So those were there at that time, and it was 2 sabjis, rice, halava, chutney, puri,
sweet rice,
lassi, and a sweet. So it was like 5 sweets, 5 salty. Vishnu Gada would say this is the perfect feast: 5 sweet, 5 salty. And what to speak of Rath Yatra? We would cook for 3 days, 4 days. straight without stopping. And we would cook a 10-course feast for 10,000 people. We had tables on both sides in Washington Square Park, and then we had a shuttle I remember making challah and making this 30-gallon barrel of challah, like big steam kettles. And we would make like the sweets, the sweet rice, the nectar drink, the chutney was all made ahead of time. All the puri doughs, and we'd have 20 devotees rolling puris. It was just amazing. When it was all over, you couldn't do anything but smile. It was euphoric. So I'm hoping that mood can come back to America. And it starts with book distribution, starts with preaching, it starts with proper relationships between the devotees. All these things, it's in the books. I mean, Krishna describes in Bhagavad-gita the mentality you should have. Nectar Instruction describes the exchanges between the devotees. Everything is there. Prabhupada knew exactly what he needed to do. And everything there is in the books to give us guidance and instruction and to inspire us. There's nothing he left out. I'm saying that because there's some philosophy that he left something out, and he didn't leave out a single thing. His words are perfect. His example was perfect, and his guidance was perfect. So I just wish he could have been on the planet a little bit longer, but not enough pious credits. But
your life would have been very different if you had been initiated by Srila Prabhupada. Krishna had some other plan, it seems.
He did. Everyone, everywhere it goes, you see a tree come up, it breaks into two. There's always a choice. And then from there it breaks, and you're going to always go in some direction where Krishna wants you to go. So I look back on where I was, and I left New York, and I went to Boston, and then from there I became Pujari, and then this happened, and all these things branched out. And, I've had devotee friends tell me, well, what would you do to change it? I said, I wouldn't change a thing. I like where I'm at. I feel safe. I'm getting older, and I have enough service to keep me protected and busy, and inspired. And if I could help one other person become Krishna conscious, then my life's perfect. So you've enabled me to be able to talk to a lot of people. I don't know, sometimes I think it's a curse, but it's actually a blessing because it's so much service. But what else are we here on this planet for?
Yeah, you're senior and you're sharing all that you have with devotees who are still struggling to find their way in Krishna consciousness.
Srila Prabhupada mentions that. I read it somewhere that Prabhupada says the duty of the senior devotees to give instruction and guidance to the younger devotees. Pretty much, you've received it, now you have to share it. And by sharing it, then there's more realization, more understanding, then you get to give more, because spiritual life isn't limited by anything. So by actually giving to others and by preaching, then the realization comes on how to preach even more nicely and more expertly and more from the heart, and more purification comes. And then that example of acharya, or teaching by example, becomes more potent. And it just keeps blooming and growing and growing. This movement is far from over. Some people say, where have you Hare Krishna's been? We're there. Sometimes, like you said, there has to be a period when not much is happening.
Well, it doesn't have to be, but sometimes there is.
Yeah, sometimes in a war you have to retreat a little bit before you can come forward. So, but I'm seeing that.
Well, I was saying that in relation to there being major acharyas.
Yeah,
but actually, the presence of the Krishna consciousness movement is there all over the world.
Yeah. I'm sorry, India is still having so much tension.
Well, in the Ritvikism thing, especially recently. But otherwise, the Krishna consciousness in India it's in different dimension to other parts of the world.
Yeah. All I know is this little section. I know Boston, I know New York, I know Atlanta, I know some places. And I just take inspiration from the example and the enthusiasm of others. And then I take it, and I put it all together, and then I give it out in a different form from my own understanding. I mean, I was speaking with 3 devotees in Boston. I was, Tapas and Matsya and Abhi, and I was saying, where would we be if Prabhupada didn't come to start this movement? I would never have met these kids. Our lives are so different from. If you look at all the devotees that come together, you think, "Oh my God, this is like such a mesh of devotees from so many different parts of the world and different cultures." But Krishna consciousness, Krishna's Chaitanya Guru in the heart. We're each individual jivama. So Krishna puts us all together. And he said, now do something special. And Prabhupada, he saw things that we couldn't see. He already knew in 26 Second Avenue. Brahmananda was telling me this once. He was sitting there with Srila Prabhupada in the storefront with other devotees. And Prabhupada was talking about temples in Russia and big temples all over the world. And he said, we were just sitting there, young boys just laughing, thinking this was so cute. But Prabhupada he already saw it. And the only thing that was different was, the only thing that was separating them was time. So it's like the desire is there, and you really want to do it. And once it's, preaching is the essence, books are the basis, purity is the force, and
utility is
the principle. So by using those 4, you could do anything. You could do absolutely anything. Spoke to that gentleman today, and I was just speaking as a I told him like a Bronx boy, and he said, I knew you were from New York. I started laughing, but now he sent me a note, he texted me, and he's going to be coming within the next couple of days. He's completely a Catholic, and I sat there. How do you preach to a Catholic? So I said, I was part of the Catholic Church. I still understand it. He goes, really? And I said, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. And I repeated the entire thing, and he went, and that was my way of branching.
Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation. That's Protestant. In the Protestant version, they say that. Yeah. For thine is the kingdom of God. Yeah. There's a little bit more. I don't remember at the end in the Protestant version. So that's there, but he was like so impressed, and he goes, I have to come to your temple. I gave him Bhagavad-gita, and I said, this means the song of God. It's actually, you're having troubles now, you feel disillusioned, you see the lack of faith, and you have lack of direction. This book will teach you. This is a great devotee, Arjuna, who Krishna, God himself, spoke to on the battlefield to dispel his illusions. His lack of faith, he lost everything, and he brought him back up. I said, so you read this book by Srila Prabhupada and our spiritual master, and you will understand. So he texted me that he's already almost finished with Nectar of Instruction. This was 3 hours ago. He's read the whole book. He says, I'm trying not to get discouraged. I try to understand such a high level of devotion and love that's there. He says, but I'm very, very... what was the word he used? I'm very anxious to start. So he might come. So Krishna makes arrangements for everyone. I really am an avid believer that there's no such thing as a coincidence. Everything is done by Krishna's grace, and if you have the purity of heart, then Krishna will send you so much to do. We have to become qualified to be Krishna's instruments, and anything is possible. Anything. Srila Prabhupada showed that, didn't he?
Yes, 100%.
the miracle of Srila Prabhupada?
Every day I'm grateful that he came. I have Karmi friends, oh, you could have been big computer guy, you could have this. I said, yes, so many things could have been. But what's the point of that when I leave my body and I'm nothing? I said, as a devotee, I have a sense of purpose and I know where I'm going, and I'm actually able to do what we're really supposed to be doing on this planet. And then we get into philosophy, and at the end they go, whoa, okay, you win.
They don't want to hear too much philosophy.
Yeah, but just simple, but enough that they go, whoa, you're right. And then they back off.
They don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
Because they wasted their life.
Yeah, it makes them feel guilty. One of my friends, one of my neighbors, he goes, you really make me feel stupid. I go, I'm not trying to make you feel stupid. I said, if you're feeling that way, then do something about it. Yeah, and so he comes over and we read a little. He sees my altar. Sometimes he brings fruits for my altar, which is kind of cool. He says, so this is going to purify me. I go, yeah, it will. I wash it, put it on the altar, and afterwards we talk, and then I take the prasadam off. I give him the Mahaprasadam from my shalagram, and he's like,
There's a devotee, Premarnava. He distributes books in Ireland. He's been doing that for decades. So he sent one story that he was distributing in a bar.
Oh my God!
And usually he just goes to the bartender because the other people are intoxicated. So he was on the way out of one bar, because in Ireland the bars they're open all day, every day, and there's someone sitting at a table says to him in a half joking way, "If I get this book, will it save me from going to hell?" And Premarnava said, I could understand that he was outwardly joking, but he was actually serious. And he said to him very positively, yes, this book will save you from going to hell. He said, give me one. He took it.
So many stories, they float in and out, especially in New York. Satyaraj was trying to get me to speak because he wrote some sort of a book about New York.
He wrote already?
Well, he was writing something. You sent me something once. Like he had different sections, and it was one section was like 3 pages called the Bhakti program. And that was pretty much, it was Niranjana and myself. But I was the main Bhakti person who took care of the Bhaktis. And I was reading it. I still have it on my phone, actually. Vishnu sent it to me. And I remember the email you said, and Damodar got honorable mention.
I don't remember.
This is a couple of years ago, and I read it, and I was like, oh my God. And I was trying to understand who John was, and it was my Bhakta Jagannath. He became my godbrother. His name was Jagannath, but his Karmi name was John. And he described everything.
Oh, he was initiated by Satsvarupa Maharaj?
Yes.
But I think later he became Ritvik or something like that.
I don't know. I lost contact. I tried to get hold of him.
He wrote a series of articles about his memories in the 1970s. Jagannath John, something like that.
Yes. But he really was affectionate. He was...
And he wrote how he was devastated by Prabhupada passing away, and he never really thought that anyone else was his guru. He never really accepted Satsvarupa Maharaj or something like that he wrote. But he wrote many nice things about New York in the 1970s.
Yeah. Late 70s for him. Because I was
late 70s, yeah.
77, 78.
Late 70s.
He was 78, 79. He was there. He came. Yeah. Tall boy, tall gentleman. But he was one of my easiest bhaktis. Very gentle, very humble. You know. We made a lot of devotees that year. Niranjana Maharaj heading it up, and they called them Damodar's ducklings, because I would shoo them into the temple room, like the mother duck and all the babies come, and they would all come on, and they'd all come in. I took it as a compliment, actually. I thought it was really nice, but we must have made. They had a Bhakti program. They had a Bhakti competition. Bhakti points.
Right.
And it was L.A., It was New York, and it was
Bhaktivedanta Manor.
Danavir Maharaj. Danavir.
It was in Bhaktivedanta Manor.
Yeah.
I was there at the
So
time.
they were in L.A. and Danavir and Danavir Prabhu. They were competing a lot. We were in third, but then because some of the points were cumulative. If the devotee stayed a week, you got so many points. If they shaved their head, that was like 10 bonus points. And if they stayed for a month, then you got this many points. And by the fourth month of this thing, we took first place, and we ran over. And Danavir used to call Niranjana. Really, I could hear him shouting on the phone, "You're lying, you're cooking the books." And we weren't doing it. We just had a lot of people coming. We were making between 6 and 10 devotees a month. It was amazing.
And then Mayapur started sending their scores, and that just dwarfed everyone.
Yeah, but that's not fair. We kept it to America.
Yeah.
To
the West, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I remember at that time a lot of people were joining in Mayapur, which hadn't been happening previously. When Prabhupada was present, he would say that why aren't Indian people joining? But just around the time Prabhupada was manifesting his disappearance pastimes, and after that many started to join. Prior to that, there weren't many Indians joining. And it just started around 77. Then many started to join.
Yeah. And I remember you spoke one time with me and you said we came up in a different generation, a different time period. And it was completely, like I said before, that urgency, that sense of excitement, that sense of dedication, that sense of like, I got to do everything I can to please Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah.
And there was like, by hook or by crook, you did whatever you had to do to figure out how to preach. And
there was nothing else to do in life.
There was absolutely nothing. It's like Arjuna with Dronacharya saying, "There's a bird in the tree. I want you to hit him in the eye." And Yudhisthira said, "I see the tree. I see the leaves." No. What do you see? And then he got to Arjuna. He goes, "What do you see? The eye of the bird. What else do you see?" "I see nothing but the eye of the bird." And that was the focus of all the devotees in the late 70s, early 80s. I can't speak for the early 70s because I wasn't there. But when I joined because of this intense, the prasadam was like Holy Mother of God. It was like the most amazing thing in the world. But the thing I loved the most was the kirtan. Sudama Maharaj once says, if you become a devotee and you could stay in New York for a year or two, you'll be a devotee your entire life. If you could survive 1 or 2 years in the New York temple.
Yeah.
It was like the austerity was super high. Cold showers, so cold in the winter that your feet would feel like needles. It would hurt. 30-second showers. But once you got downstairs, there was Radha Govinda and Big Jagannath and Gauri Tai. And then Prana got shalagrams. First time we've ever had shalagrams, I think, was in New York. He had very beautiful shalagrams. And, but there was that mood of cooperation and love. And there was no stopping anybody. No way to stop us. Yeah. You know what it's like? You go on a Saturday to Harinam, and then you bring back 2 or 3 people every week. Just pick them up. It was like picking apples off a tree. People would just come back completely like, wow. And they'd come upstairs. We used to have already made, like you go to the army and you have a towel and your uniform.
Oh, right.
So I would have kurta, bhakta pants, yogi pants, towel, toothbrush, little suchi kits, and everything set up. And they'd stay overnight, and usually by the next weekend, at least if there was 3, 2 of them would join. There was 2, 1 would join. It was always like that. Every week, in the Sunday feasts, we'd have 12 people in the Bhakti program. And usually 4 or 5 would stay overnight. Then they'd come back the next week. And usually by the end, within a month, most people that came would join. It was infectious.
And seeing that also inspired the devotees more and more, seeing more people joining.
Srila Prabhupada said, he said, new devotees, new blood.
Mm.
That's what gives enthusiasm and hope.
Mm.
So.
You had so many great kirtan leaders there at the time.
Oh, my God. Well, most people don't know Adi Kesha, but a little skinny sannyasi.
Was he a good kirtan leader?
He actually was. He gave amazing classes, and he did nice kirtan, and then you had.
He was also a New Yorker.
Yeah, he was, yeah. But the ones I remember the most was
Vikeshwara
Pandit was powerful, and then you had Bhumipati, Abhilas, Ramachandra. They were all black bodies, and they were all chiseled.
Yeah.
And they'd all be like, and they would do a whole da-da-da together.
They played once Bombay Juhu. It must have been 1978. Vakreshwara came in with Bhumipati and Shashtivar.
Oh, I know, yeah, Shashtivar.
And Vakreshwara was leading the kirtan. One side was Bhumipati, one side was Shashtivar, and they led a kirtan like we never imagined such a kirtan. And it was just the evening arati, and everyone was just dancing so high. Completely covered, because it's Bombay, it's humid, hot, completely covered in sweat, and just amazing kirtan.
Someone told me that when Prabhupada, Vikeshwar Pandit led Guru Puja for him. When he led Guru Puja, it was like shifting gears. And he would get into this, Shri Guru Charana, and he was like, and Prabhupada said, who's this Gandharva? Who is this Gandharva? Yeah. But then you had Vishnu Gadar, who you had him here.
Yeah.
When he would lead everybody, it was like we would all swoon.
He's a Gandharva.
Oh my God,
for sure.
There's no way he could have came. He did not come from the material planet. He had to come from one of the demigods' planets, because the way he would lead, and then he would just look at you, and you knew everything was all right.
Yeah.
Everything was fine.
Very, very godly kind of, saintly person.
And then we had Niranjan Swami. Like I told you, he was B team at the time.
Amazing. If he was in the B team, who was in the A team?
Oh, well, then you had Lakshmi Nishinga. And then you had...
Urjasvat?
Oh, yeah, Urjasvat. He was very passionate and strong. But he also would be like you could see, he was like, come on, let's do this.
Dinanath? Was he in the...
Yeah, Dinanath was living there, yeah. He was there. He actually moved to New York when I joined in August, and I saw him in September, and he stayed. And he was such a gentle soul. I used to love talking with him. It wasn't just that they were just nice kirtaneers, but they were so protective of the younglings, of the younger devotees.
Well, that's a lot to do with good kirtan. It's not just musical style. It's otherwise there are so many performers.
I see it now.
It's got to be from the heart, really. It's got to be devotion.
Paid for it or something.
Yeah. But the real devotion, where you're not singing to impress anyone. You're singing to please Krishna and to inspire the devotees to engage in Sankirtan Yagya and connect with Krishna. Yeah. It's all for Krishna. It's not for my name, fame, reputation, nothing.
It was always, we'd have the leader, and then we'd have a minimum 4 mridangas. We'd have 4 pairs of wampus.
It's amazing. If you have more mridangas, if you have 2 mridangas, if you have 1 mridanga, of course, minimum. If you have 2 mridangas, the effect is more than 2 times 1. If you have 3 mridangas, it's more than 3 times 1. You get what I mean? The more mridangas you have, it's like a geometric progression.
But not just that, but they were completely in sync with each other. It wasn't like you heard boop 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 like 2 different mridangas. It was like and they had
musical synergy. They were used to playing with each other.
And then 4 pairs of wampers and about 30 30, 40 pairs of cartels. No shakers. That came later.
That wouldn't even be heard.
No, but it was like 30, 40 pairs. And we were just like, and then Vacation Pond had a way of making it come to a crescendo. You know, and then you'd be like, and then and at the end he'd go, it's like, oh, Haribo, 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 Haribo. And we go, we would all get so excited. Also, and then we'd start up again. At least once, twice a month, there wasn't a Bhagavatam class. It was just, the kirtan would go right till breakfast time. It would start at 7, and it would go till 9 o'clock, 2 hours. What to speak of Gaur Purnim, and sometimes Jamashmi, it would go for 4 or 5 hours. And everybody took turns, you know. One person would finish it, Vikesh Panda would finish, Haribo Jai Prabhu Pada, Prabhu Pada, and all of a sudden you hear, in the, like, 5 meters away, gunk, and all of a sudden Lakshmi Shinga would walk out, or Urdhva would come out with the drum, and I would go, it would just start up again.
Ready for the next phase.
And nobody was like, oh, I'm tired. No. Everybody was right there the whole time. I wish I had a few of my godbrothers because it would bounce.
Right. You'd be inspiring each other. You remember this? You remember that?
Yeah. I got the name Damodar because I was the only one that could steal the Mangalatik sweets without getting caught.
Oh, I see. There's an actual reason for getting that name.
Yeah, when I got my name, I can't find the tape. My godbrother has, he's going to send it to me. But after each, there was like 25 devotees, so 17 or 18 first initiated. And each person that went up, their name actually was perfect for them. One was Bhaktaran. He was chiseled like Lord Ramachandra, and his name became Ramachandra. Then Nam Sankirtan, he was really good at Sankirtan. His name was Noel, so he got Nam Sankirtan. Then one devotee was very melodious, and he got the name Rati Das.
Oh, yeah.
And then another devotee was like Robert, but he had big giant arms. So Satyam Maharaj said, your name is Rupa Sanatan Das. He says, so Rupa Sanatan are two of the Goswamis, and he says, so you get one name for each arm. But at the end of each name, the devotees go, and not to boast, but I was the baby of the temple. I was like the youngest devotee there when I joined. So when I went up, he said, you could hear Haribo, Haribo. I says, your name is, he goes, Damodara Dasa. I went, oh crap, he knows. I thought, oh no, he knows. And everybody started laughing and cheering, and I was like,
because you had a reputation as a thief?
Yeah, I stole the sweets and the shrikant. The Pujari would be there, and there'd be 6 or 8 pujaris. There was Sadachar and Rama Bhadra, and there was Vikasa Pandit, and all these devotees were in there. And I would just walk right up to the Mangalatik plates, and I would just take my chada, and I go, and nobody saw me. And I go like this, and I just walk out. And then all of a sudden, one day I did that, and I was already at the stairs to go, because there's a staircase goes all the way up to 12 floors. And I was like at the 2nd floor, and I hear, he already hit, somebody already stole, where are they? Go to the stairs. And I was like, oh, and I got to the 3rd floor, and I got off the 3rd floor, and I hid we had an auditorium there. Huh. And I hid there like waiting. And I thought, and I started eating the sweets. I was pretty much a rascal. I even asked Satyam Maharaj. We were in the elevator, and I said, so you gave me the name Damodar. Is this because they finally found out I was the one stealing the sweets? And we got to the 11th floor, which is where the gurus were, and the doors open, and he went, he wouldn't tell me. But then, about a year ago, I was sitting having lunch with him, and I brought that up because I said, it's been over 40 years now, 45 years. You gave me the name Damodar, and when you did this, Yeah, and we were at the 11th floor, and I was asking you, is this the reason? And you went like this. And then all of a sudden someone came in from outside, and it changed everything up. And then all of a sudden when it was over, I said, Guru Maharaj, you have to let me know. And he goes,
again.
And I was like, I looked at him, I went, that's just wrong. And he went, but he smiled. And as I started walking away, he goes, Damodar. And I turned around, and he went. And I was like, okay. So. But every name matched one devotee was like 6'4". His name was Mahajan. Mahajan. You know, and every devotee had these names that were perfect for them. One devotee was a real joker. Like he always was making jokes. He named him Adhoksaja. Which doesn't mean that, but...
A jokesaja.
Yeah, right. A hoax or a hoaxaja. Yeah.
Oh, hoax jokes. Yeah.
And I mean, it was like, but what I remembered the most was that there was such a loving mood. When it was over, everybody, it was like you graduated from college, and all the families hugging you. And, and then after that, there was this humongous feast. And even breakfast was amazing. Imagine rice, dal, chapati, sabji. Rice always had peas, cashews. Sabji was always opulent. Vishnu would make a different sabji every day. Chapatis laden with butter, right out of the Caitanya-caritamrta. It was such a wonderful upbringing. And so I credit Radha Govinda for me still being able to be a devotee. Because, you know, the foundation, the roots were strong. So, and now Krishna's been kind enough to let me have your association. So,
Hare Krishna.
Oh, you can say that, Maharaj, but the fact of the matter is, you know, without nice association, how do we actually grow? How do we become inspired? So I have you, I have my Guru Maharaj, I have Niranjan Swami, I have
You have a few friends. You've been a lifelong friend of Kirtan Ras Prabhu.
Yes, Hayashva Prabhu. That's the most important thing. So. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Glories to Srila Prabhupada.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.